Hi, my name is Beth, and welcome to my June reading journal wrap-up. Summer is finally happening here in Canada. I feel like this year spring has gone on for so much longer than it usually goes on for. We've had a pretty cool spring here, but I think things are finally in full summer swing, which I really enjoy because then I can be outside and read in my hammock, which is always nice. Last month, I talked about how I was really struggling with finding the desire to read anything. I was so burnt out that I just didn't want to read at all, but I felt a lot different in June. I think part of it was because my schedule finally calmed down for the first time in I don't even know when. But I think it's also in part to there being a number of my 2025 anticipated books being released in June. I'm really trying not to haul many books this year. I'm not putting myself on a book buying ban, but I only want to purchase things that I know I'm actually going to read. So far, I've only purchased 7 books this year, and I'm very happy about that number. There were a few exciting things that happened in June. The first is that I finally finished my last coursework class for my program, which means that all I have left is my research project. Because I took a class in the summer, I haven't really had any time to work on my research project, so I'll only have about a month to produce my project, but I have a pretty solid plan, so I think it'll be manageable. The other exciting news is that I have officially adopted Baby the cat. If you've been watching my channel for the last little while, you'll know that I've been watching him for a few months now. But in June, his original owner told me that she no longer had an interest in owning a cat and offered him to me. I'm obviously sad for her that she won't have her pet anymore, but knowing that having a cat no longer interests her, I'm more than willing to take care of him on her behalf. So Mr. Baby is officially my cat, and I'm incredibly excited about it. But as always with my journal, I'm starting with my monthly cover page. You might notice that I'm at a new table. I've moved back in with my parents for the unforeseeable future, so I'm still trying to work out the lighting for this new location, so bear with me on that. But I like to separate my reading journal by month because that's how I tend to remember the books I read. I'm adding a quote to the left-hand side of the page. This month I've gone for I Am a Little in Awe of You, which is from When Among Crows by Veronica Roth, which I read last month. It's always nice to find short quotes that stand out because they require a little less planning to fit on the page. I'm using a sticker sheet from Artimation Co. on Etsy to decorate this cover page. I've gone for a beachy theme to encourage summer to keep on coming. I've also added 3 labels to the right-hand side of the page to list the 3 books I read this month. Even though I was excited about reading, I didn't read much more than usual. I still had a class to finish up and an essay to write, so I'm not upset about this. But now that the cover page is complete, we can get started on the book spreads. The first book I read in June was The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. Back in April, I reread The Raven Boys, so it was only a matter of time before I got to this one. I actually started my reread of this in May, but again, like I said, my reading interest level was so low in May, I couldn't even convince myself to continue reading my favorite series. But it's all right because I got back into it in June, and it felt really good to get through this book. The Dream Thieves is the second book in the Raven cycle, and it heavily follows the character Ronan, someone who did not have any POV chapters in the first book. As Gansey, Blue, Adam, Ronan, and Noah continue their search for the dead Welsh king Glendower, the magical forest Cabeswater has mysteriously vanished, and the teens are trying to figure out a way to bring it back. At the same time, a hitman known only as the Grey Man has arrived in Henrietta, desperately searching for the Grey Warren, a magical item that allows its owner to take items from their dreams. Ronan in particular finds himself wrapped up in this Greywarren business, connecting with the town's local notorious teen Kavinsky and painting a target on his back, much to the upset of his older brother Declan. As the hunt for the Greywarren increases, danger persists in the town, and the hunt for Glendower becomes harder and harder to grasp. I constantly go back and forth with myself about which book in this series is my favorite, and this one always puts up a good fight for that title. There's something so magical and fun about the Dream Thieves that I just love. I know a lot of series, especially trilogies, can suffer from sequelitis, but I genuinely feel like this book is a great follow-up to The Raven Boys. I've mentioned this before, but I believe book 1 has the most solid plot, but this one really opens up the world. Suddenly, the quest is not just a harmless search for a dead Welsh king. It becomes the heart of an international hunt for magical artifacts. Where the first book showed us that magic and ley lines are only known by selective people and are relatively harmless, this second book destroys that presumption to show us that it is, in fact, the opposite. Dreaming and ley lines and magical energies have been around for so much longer than we were originally led to believe, and I think this helps flesh the scope of the story out much better than the first. Adam is my favorite character from the Raven cycle, but he really changes in this book, and it's probably the worst one for Adam representation. But that's okay, because this book is full of my second favorite character, everyone's favorite bald baddie, Ronan Lynch. I absolutely love Ronan, but I didn't always. When I first read The Raven Boys, he was actually my least favorite of the boys. I just felt like he was a very cliché character, and one I'd seen a million times before in a million different stories. The tall, arrogant one in the friend group who wears black and is violent and sarcastic, is rich and has trauma. I didn't find him to be unique at all, so I didn't latch onto him. But everything changed when I read The Dream Thieves. You quickly learn that Ronan is one of, if not the, most interesting character in this entire series. He is very complex and certainly unique. Yes, he's violent, but he's extremely vulnerable and hurt, explosive, and kind when he wants to be. This book does a great job at humanizing Ronan, and I definitely understand why so many people have him as their favorite in the series. I used some dark witch sticker flakes from Alice Illustrate on Etsy. I thought they would pair well with this book because there were tarot cards, a raven, and a key, all things relevant to the book. I also used 2 washi tapes from Hobby Lobby. I wanted to make the title mimic the book cover because that's what I did for my Raven Boys spread, but I'm not super happy with how it turned out. The E's look kind of weird, but it is what it is. So my June reading really started off on a high, which is always nice. I gave The Dream Thieves 5 stars. I'm aware that I'm a little biased, but I do love this series. The second book I read was Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. If there's one thing you need to know about me, it's that my favorite movie of all time is Ella Enchanted. I know that it isn't a particularly acclaimed movie, or even a moderately acclaimed movie, but it is the one film that I have seen more than any other. When I was a kid, I used to watch the scenes on repeat because I was a genuinely unhinged child. And still to this day, it's the movie that brings me the most joy to rewatch. So I knew that I would eventually read this book, and it finally happened in June. This book is about a 15-year-old girl named Ella who was given the gift of obedience at birth by a witch named Lucinda. As a result, Ella does everything she's told to do, no exceptions. After her mother's death, her father sends her to a finishing school, an academy designed to help young women become ladies. Her curse becomes particularly problematic when her bullies, Hattie and Olive, discover the curse and use it to their advantage. The one thing Ella has going for her, though, is Prince Charmant, the handsome young prince of the kingdom whom she's recently befriended. Sick and tired of being quote-unquote blessed, Ella sets out to find Lucinda and break her obedience curse. I knew that the movie would be different from the book, they almost always are, but I was not expecting just how different these two stories are. I would hesitate to say that the film is even an adaptation because, other than character names and the curse itself, they are two completely different tales. I was continuously being surprised at the changes, so I understand why fans of the book would have been really disappointed with the movie. I was trying really hard not to let the movie influence my thoughts on the book because they're so different, but I have to admit that there are some things that the movie changed that I think make more sense. My biggest point with this is related to Ella's father, Peter. In both versions of the story, he is a very absent father because he's always going off to other cities for work. But in the book, it's established that Ella's mother was quite wealthy. They live in a big house and have numerous servants working for them. So I don't really understand why he's always leaving for work if he's already wealthy. Maybe he just likes working, but he's really aggressive about it towards Ella to the point where she repeatedly declares her hatred of him. I didn't really love this choice because it means that Ella has no one in her corner other than her servant and fairy godmother, Mandy. I also wasn't a huge fan of how Ella and Char's relationship played out in the book. In the movie, it's a good old enemies to lovers situation with a lot of banter. In the book, it's more friends to lovers, which isn't what bothers me. I think I actually prefer friends to lovers, but I think what I found weird was that most of their relationship is built while they're apart. Char shows up every once in a while, but most of his engagement with Ella is through letters or through her using her magic book to read his diary entries. So they develop a relationship, but they don't really spend a lot of time together. I guess it just feels very expedited to me. I do understand that that's the nature of fairy tales, but I wish that they'd been together in Aortha or just spent more time in each other's presence. I don't want to spoil the book for anyone who hasn't read it yet, but I will say that I found the ending to be a bit confusing. Just the whole situation with the curse didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I feel like there's supposed to be this big moment of power and strength, and I thought it was a little bit lacking. I used a flower washi tape roll from the washi tape shop for this spread. I've always wanted to do a spread like this, but I've never had the proper stationery to pull it off. So when the washi tape shop sent me this roll, I knew exactly how I was going to use it. If you'd like a discount from the washi tape shop, you can use my code I'mBeth10 for 10% off your order, and I'll receive a small commission. So this wasn't the best book I've ever read, but it wasn't horrible. I thought Ella was a good protagonist, and I think that if I'd read this book when I was younger, I probably would have really liked it. I also really liked the character Olive. She's just so dumb and entertaining that you can't not like her. But overall, I gave Ella Enchanted 2.5 stars. I just found too many things confusing or frustrating. The last book I read in June was Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. I'm pretty sure that this is one of my oldest unread books. I believe I bought this book back in 2017, and it's only taken me 8 years to finally read it. This book is set at a rehabilitation facility called Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children. It's a special center designed for children who have entered alternate fantasy worlds, but who have been kicked out and forced to return to the quote-unquote normal society. It's meant to help bridge the gap between the worlds and allow kids the chance to heal from the trauma of returning and accept the real world again. The book follows a young girl named Nancy, the newest arrival at the home, who has just been kicked out of a land of the dead, very reminiscent to the underworld in Greek mythology. Nancy is convinced that she will make it back to her world, despite the fact that many kids only go to their worlds once. But as a dangerous mystery begins plaguing the home, it's unclear if Nancy will ever get the chance. I knew going into this book that so many people love it, and I was really looking forward to it. I feel like this book had a lot of things right up my alley, but unfortunately, I was really disappointed with Every Heart a Doorway. The premise is interesting, but I also feel like it's the book's biggest confliction. All of the kids have come from these amazing places where they're all valued. Fairy realms, goblin kings, candy, and rainbow worlds. By design, the Home for Wayward Children isn't even as remotely interesting. It's hard to fall in love with a place that no one wants to be at. And I do understand that this book is supposed to be about the afterwards, the recovery, but I feel like the characters barely do any healing. They all start off wanting to go back to their worlds, and they end in the exact same place. I wasn't really interested in the home, and neither were any of the kids, so I wasn't excited about spending time there. And the whole mystery element didn't really work too well for me either. I saw some people on Goodreads critiquing the violence of it, but that isn't what bothered me. I just didn't feel like it connected all that well. The mystery only starts in the second half of the book, and this book is less than 200 pages long, so it gets really repetitive really fast. And I predicted the twist ending right away. I found it to be very obvious. There are a few things that I thought McGuire held my hand through. I originally thought that this was an adult book, but it's actually young adult, so I can understand that to a degree. But there are some moments where I felt like there just wasn't enough trust in the reader to understand what was going on. I used a sticker sheet from Joe Laco for this spread because it matched the cover of the book really well. I also used a piece of paper ephemera shaped like a door from IEB. I thought it made sense to add a door somewhere to the spread, and it matched with the sticker sheet. I had some trouble gluing it to the page, but I think I made it work. I also had a thank you card from Jasmine Allen Draws on Etsy with a girl and her cat on it. She was the perfect height for the door, so I cut it out and put her behind the door. I used 2 washi tapes for this spread. The orange grid tape is from Ikigai Papier, and the orange flower tape is from IEB. I also have a discount code GUESS20 for 20% off any orders from IEB. Similarly to Ella Enchanted, I didn't inherently hate this book. I liked some of the characters, and I thought there was a lot of good diversity represented, but I wanted a lot more from this book. I gave Every Heart a Doorway 2 stars. I don't think I will continue this series because I just found it extremely underwhelming. And that is it for my June reading journal wrap-up. I have a good feeling going into July. I'm not quite done with school yet though, so if I don't accomplish as much as I want to, I'm not going to put myself down about it. I always have from August onward to conquer the things that I haven't gotten to yet. But it's really nice to finally be back into wanting to read. I know June wasn't the best in terms of reading enjoyment, but I'm feeling good about July. Until then, thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.